chasing the police every single day.
Predator Sheriff. Written by David DiCrescenzo on February 12, 2019. Posted in National News. During the height of the 2018 election season, a story began emerging out of Lee County, FL. I didn't hear about it until only the first week of February via a friend and this video where the victim explains in her own words to investigative reporter Ann Vandersteel what happened to her. This is a story with a lot of moving parts about police corruption and abuse of power at the highest levels, as well as blatant incompetence by one attorney and followed up with theft by another that everyone needs to know about. It involves a young woman, Deanna Williams, who has been through a living hell during the past 10 years, starting with being sexually assaulted by a neighbor. That assault led to a civil suit involving a settlement structured to be a series of yearly payments over a period of several years, which wound up with one recent payment being mishandled and misappropriated, and then intercepted by an attorney who bought the case from the first attorney and falsely claimed authorization to receive the funds on behalf of the victim. Not knowing what to do, Deanna did what many might and brought this to the attention of the local sheriff's office. The deputy who took her information and the report, nice man that he was just incapable of getting the information straight, and she had to keep repeating herself, ultimately having to return several times. During her visits to the sheriff's office she did not meet the sheriff. However, preliminary FDLE inspectors believe that at the time under Sheriff of Lee County, Carmine Marceno probably saw her during at least one of her visits and decided to reach out to her on Facebook saying he wanted to get to the bottom of her case, which in and of itself is highly unusual and suspicious because police bosses don't normally get directly involved with specific investigations. However, a little detail you need to know about at this point in the story is that the woman happens to be very attractive, and sadly for many attractive women, there are too many men who simply cannot see beyond that and have ulterior motives behind any gesture of assistance, and that is exactly what happened with the then under-sheriff. Apparently, when she arrived at the sheriff's office to file her report, she caught his eye and he liked what he saw, and like the predator that it turns out he is, he immediately began making inappropriate advances towards her, beginning with sending her a message on Facebook stating that he wanted to get to the bottom of her case. On a FB message, Carmine asked her to meet at his office with LCSO attorney Holloway. After that meeting, he promised that someone would get back to her within days. That is when he started texting and calling on a personal level and began pursuing Deanna persistently. Even after she clearly expressed to him that she was not interested in a personal relationship, as predators do, he persisted in forcing himself upon her, trying to date her, showed real interest, invited her to meet his family, etc. Against her better judgment, and given that he was an authority figure, she began to trust him. Enough so that, within a few weeks, their relationship became physical and she found out that she was pregnant. Suddenly, this predator changed his tune 180 degrees, demanded that she have an abortion, made threats, and began escalating her already huge challenge into a horrific nightmare. Even his mother told her over the phone that Carmine doesn't believe it's right for you to have the baby because you're not married. The under-sheriff repeatedly reiterated that he would not allow her to give birth to their child under any circumstances, and that he had people who would do absolutely anything for him and that she had no one to protect her. Those threats were and are chilling. Keep in mind, she didn't go to the police to make new friends, she went to them for help because a substantial amount of money was stolen from her, and the top cop on the scene decided to help himself to her. A scandal began, largely buried by the election, but not before the media got wind of the story due to the impending paternity suit against him. In an attempt to lessen public scrutiny, he took some time off and reportedly went to Hawaii while the main heat was on. This was a guy who was supporting all the right politicians, our new Governor DeSantis among them. Just before he left office, outgoing Governor Rick Scott appointed him as the new sheriff without vetting him beyond that he was already second in command and had the blessing of the outgoing sheriff. From what I've been able to learn, once Governor DeSantis got wind of what was going on, his team scrubbed everything they could find that might have associated this corrupt official to their campaign, so the governor is certainly well aware of this story and needs to oversee a serious investigation leading up to the removal and arrest of a man who, as it turns out, has done this sort of thing before. In the meantime, Deanna has endured threats such as laser beams coming through her windows onto her walls, cars slowly driving by, and much more. She has also attempted to get this man to do the right thing financially to no avail. The money, both fees and what she has been cheated out of from the lawsuits, has cost her far in excess of $500,000. With every passing day, she is trying to stay healthy for herself and a baby which is due in the spring. She is facing financial ruin, and she is doing it alone. Additionally, his attorney's response to the paternity suit states, despite Carmine's insistence that Deanna abort the child, he denies paternity in legal documents, and he requests paternity be established through DNA testing, at the same time requesting that said DNA testing be delayed for an extended period of time. None of this story should have happened, but this very personal part is critical. Carmine understood that Deanna had not engaged in any sexual intimacy during the many years since the previous assault, which caused her to seek help from the sheriff's office in the first place, and at no time did he or any member of his family express doubt that he was the father of the baby. Instead, all they have done is encourage her to abort the baby for Carmine's sake, when all she wants is for him to step up to the plate and do the responsible thing financially, and she will raise the child on her own for the baby's sake. Instead of simply allowing his office to investigate the injury Deanna initially approached them for, this has turned into a sad story all around, putting a major black eye on the Lee County Sheriff's Office, and most tragically, creating a very unplanned development and setback for a woman with 2 grown children who was stepping into her prime years and who just wanted to find justice for another injury.
It says he is the father of her
Just a little more than a month after Carmine Marceno was sworn in as Lee County's new sheriff, he's now dealing with an increasingly public legal battle. I'm Patrick Nolan.
And I'm Jane Monreal. We have been trying for days now to get the sheriff's response to the paternity suit that's filed against him. The woman who filed it says he is the father of her unborn baby. And she tells me she filed that suit to keep him from having contact with the child.
Congratulations, Sheriff Marceno. You're in charge.
When Carmine Marceno was sworn in as sheriff on October 1st, the ceremony was held at McGregor Baptist Church. With his hand on his heart, he stood between Sheriff Mike Scott, who was retiring, and Governor Scott, who appointed Marceno to the rest of Scott's term. Marceno promised accountability.
To use this opportunity to make this the greatest and safest county there is.
But behind the scenes was a very personal drama that was about to go public. In court, Deanna Williams filed these documents Monday as part of a lawsuit for paternity against Sheriff Marceno. In the documents, she says she wants sole custody of the unborn child, claiming the father does not wish for the child to be born. Only on Fox 4, after long discussion, Deanna finally agreed to an on-camera interview about the paternity lawsuit she filed and her reason for speaking publicly for the first time.
Why now file a paternity suit?
I wanted to give him a little bit of time to get to the point where he could absorb things and have a rational conversation about it. I wanted him to realize that this child is going to be born. We are having a baby, and he needs to discuss this, and like most parents do, and discuss all of those issues that come along with having a baby.
Deanna claims he has insisted she terminate the pregnancy so vigorously that she's scared.
I am concerned about his level of desperation, the tone in his voice, the panic that abortion was the only way. He was so adamant that anything else was absolutely wrong, that I could not have this child, that I would not have this child, that I would not under any circumstances.
Deanna and her attorney say those statements are the reason they're asking a court to keep Marceno from having contact with the baby after it's born. On the document it reads, the court should establish a parenting plan with the following provisions: no time sharing with the father, This schedule is in the best interest of the child because the father does not wish for the child to be born nor to accept the child into his life. In the alternative, the mother requests supervised time sharing for the father. We tried to get the sheriff's response to these claims and were told the Lee County Sheriff's Office is declining a request for an interview. This is a personal matter being handled by the sheriff through his attorney. So we called Sheriff Marceno and his attorney.
My name is Jane Monreal, calling from Fox 4 News.
And sent other emails and texts in our quest to get you answers. We could not get any access or comment from the sheriff, so we checked to see when the sheriff was last in the public spotlight. We found this social media post from the sheriff's office on October 18th, in which the sheriff poses with a state representative. The post says the sheriff gave a tour of the office during the meeting. Since Marceno was appointed by Governor Scott, we asked the governor if he has anything to say to you about this. No response. Since the office of sheriff is normally an elected and always a partisan office, and Marceno is Republican, we reached out to the Lee County Republican Party. No response. So we reached out to the man who gave Marceno his political blessing to take over his old job. Mike Scott told us by phone he stands behind Marceno as sheriff.
I have full faith and confidence in Carmine professionally.
Scott also said he's not involved in Marceno's personal life, but has been in contact with him.
I just know pretty much what I've seen and heard publicly. Obviously, I've spoken with Carmine a little bit about it, but and have, of course, encouraged him to, understand it again. Like everyone else pretty much on the planet Earth right now, there's generally a professional side and a personal side. And sometimes they can become commingled.
But the lawsuit only refers to a personal relationship. We asked her about the wording in the suit, quote, "The father does not wish for the child to be born."
He told me that pregnancies can end in other ways than abortion.
Was that on the phone?
That was on the phone, and I asked if that was a threat, and I asked him to clarify that. And I think he said something like, "Hun, come on, you've got to realize you've got to do what's right."
We also heard from someone who seems to have a unique perspective in the story. As a former prosecutor, Chris Crowley is familiar with the law. He also says he's acquainted with Sheriff Marceno and is a friend of Deanna Williams.
He was very nervous, very afraid, was kind of being bullied by the sheriff to have an abortion, and she wanted to keep the child. And I tried to kind of mediate the process.
Did you reach out to the sheriff?
I did. I left a message on his cell, but he never got back to me.
How long ago was that?
About a couple weeks ago. I was trying to see if we could maybe work something out quietly in mutual before, because I'm a certified mediator, but it just never happened.
Crowley tells me he offered to be a go-between for Deanna and the sheriff. Deanna says she was monogamous with the sheriff. Crowley says the sheriff has not taken a basic but crucial step he offered to assist with.
I didn't do the paternity test myself, and it hasn't been done, but as far as I know, this is the sheriff's child.
Without the sheriff responding to our repeated requests to share his side of the story, Deanna's words are all the community has to go by for now.
I would like for him to take care of his responsibilities. This is his child too. I wish he cared. It's very hard. I don't know what it's like for a child to be born with one parent who cares and one parent who not only doesn't care, but absolutely does not want him or her to be born. It's hard to think about.
Marceno was appointed to finish 2 years of Mike Scott's 4-year term, and then he'll have to run for re-election after that. We did.
Food Truck Friday, the segment where we...
Hey, Sheriff County, this is Sheriff County COPWATCH. I am using any video here with under fair use if you have criticism, reporting, teaching, etc. And please donate. I do not make money from YouTube, and there are different ways to donate in the video links. Thanks.